Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Radical Democracy Show. I'm your host, Kamali Rose, joined today by Kwame Norville from Raised Fist Media. What's up, Kwame?
What's up, y'all?
All right, so great to have you on. Today, we're here to talk about something that has been floating around on the news and kind of flying a little bit under the radar on the left. I think a lot of folks on the left are trying to just sort of ignore this, and I don't think that that's terribly wise of us. We need to confront these sort of issues, and make sure that we can help frame the narrative around these issues, because it is important that we do so. Otherwise, we cede that ground to the right wing, and the right wing is certainly using this to try to create a narrative that we must refute. Okay, so we have to refute that argument by the right wing. And what's happening is the right wing is trying to essentially, the right wing has, there's somebody that has been framed as a left-wing, liberal activist, left-wing activist, Black Lives Matter activist, and he was exposed and arrested for instigating crimes at the U.S. Capitol during the Capitol riots on January 6th. He initially tried to pose as essentially as just a neutral journalist there documenting the day's events, and tried to pose as a neutral journalist. And the right wing has really latched on to this story and is essentially using it to, try to back their narrative of saying, oh, well, the Capitol riots were all a left-wing plot by Black Lives Matter and Antifa. And so what we want to do is we're going to show you today clips of the footage of this, what we'll call for our purposes, a fake left activist. He's this chaos agent, essentially, who has tried to, instigated and instigated the mob and incited violence, and actually was involved with the situation that led to Ashley Babbitt, the white woman, being shot in the neck by U.S. Capitol Police. And I think that it also kind of shifts a bit of that narrative as well. So everything that we're going to show you today is going to come from this article in The Gray Zone by Max Blumenthal. So everything that we're going to talk about today can be found in this article. It's an amazing article. It's a really long article because Max Blumenthal is a thorough investigative journalist, and he really goes through and pieces together what is a just batshit insane, story that really just sort of has so many twists and turns to it that are important to note and to be aware of. So what we want to do today is we're going to go through a lot of the video footage from this article that was cited in it, sort of the important bits of it. Max Blumenthal was also, and you can find, we'll put links to these articles and videos where you guys can find them, hopefully in the description box. If you're watching this after the fact, they are in the description box. So check them out. The links will be in the description box below. Okay. So to everything that we're showing, we got receipts. All right. So, all right. So what we're going to be looking at today is Max Blumenthal was actually interviewed by Katie Halper on her show, The Katie Halper Show. And what we want to do is to show you some of the clips from that interview, because Max Blumenthal actually, I think he adds a little bit of context to some of these clips that are important to note. And so what we're going to do is we'll take a look at a few of these clips. Some of the clips a little bit longer than the clips I typically like to show. I like to try to keep them, just a minute or two. Some of these clips are 3 to 4 minutes long, but I think they're just so important. I tried to narrow this down as much as we could, but there's just so much context to provide here because it's a really complicated story, but one that deserves our attention. Okay, so the first clip that we're gonna share share here today is it's going to be a clip of this alleged Black Lives Matter activist. His name is John Sullivan, aka Jaden X, and he was touted on, his footage was used by CNN and MSNBC So major news networks had MSNBC, in fact, licensed his footage, so paid him for his footage. Again, he went on Anderson Cooper and was interviewed on Anderson Cooper, presented himself as again, like a neutral, an observer, a journalist that was there observing, documenting the events of the day. And on a review of his actual footage, the raw footage of his video, it was made quite clear that he was actually not just a neutral observer, but in fact a participant in those days' events, and was fairly integral in inciting multiple instances of either crimes against, if we're being real, property, which I don't think are as serious for sure for me on the left, not an issue at all, but particularly, inciting things that led to violence and, again, in the case of Ashley Babbitt, a death. And so let's take a look. The first clip that we're going to show is going to be, this is going to be John Sullivan, and he's inside the Capitol building at this point. This is the set of events that led up to the death of Ashley Babbitt. And a lot of the narrative, has been that, this, and again, you can look at old video of mine. In the immediate aftermath of this, I came out, I condemned the shooting by the Capitol Police of an unarmed woman. I completely condemned it. I said, this is, in holding with my principles, this is not, we shouldn't be supporting, police shooting unarmed civilians. That was my initial gut reaction to it. And some of what we're going to see here has honestly changed my mind on that somewhat. So I just want to, let's get to the clip. Again, this clip is about 3 minutes long that we're going to play here. It's about 3 minutes long. And what we're going to see inside of this clip is John Sullivan, aka Jaden X, the supposed Black Lives Matter activist, offering material support to the Proud Boys, these fascist insurrectionists. He's going to offer material support. He's also going to do this really wild tactic of getting the police to leave the scene so that the mob can advance. All right. So he's helping the mob to advance. And he does this multiple times throughout this raw footage. We're just going to play one instance of it here. And again, this is the instance that led to, this is the moments immediately before. And I think we'll see all the way up until Ashley Babbitt, the protester, is shot and ultimately is killed. We're not going to see video of her being shot or anything like that, but you will hear it at the very end of this clip. Okay. Sorry for all that, but let's get to it here.
Let me do. I got a knife. I got a knife. I got a knife.
Just real quick, I just want you to know that I got a knife. Knife. That is Jaden X. That's John Sullivan in a crowd, along with a group of Proud Boys, and they're approaching the door where, again, this is the door right where the scene of where this woman is about to be shot in the neck. And he is telling them in some way, I got a knife. I got a knife. So either, I don't know what he says, I'm with you. I got a knife. All right. So he says, I'm with you. I got a knife. All right. I'll play that back one more time for you so that you can hear it. Okay.
Let me through. I got a knife. I got a knife.
Okay. Let me through. Sorry. Let me through. I got a knife.
I got a knife.
So you heard him say, I got a knife, and he's pushing through. There's 3 Capitol Police standing between them and the speaker's lobby. I don't know who was in there, but somebody important was in there.
Pedophile, they're saying, the conspiracy theories.
Yeah, look at the guy with the kind of with the hat right there. He came out of nowhere and is also a major instigator of the mob. And he's calling them like Epstein pedophiles, QAnon talk.
He wants you to go home. I'm recording.
Okay, that's John Sullivan.
Yeah.
They're going to push their way up here.
So he's saying, guys, we want you to go home.
I want you to go home.
He's talking to the
This is what
police.
he's been doing to the cops the whole time to get them to move, and so the mob can advance.
So essentially he's saying, we want you to get home. All right. And I think you'll hear him again in a second say, I've seen this happen. I don't want you to get hurt. It's almost like a passive sort of, and almost, it's got some threat behind it. Not that he's threatening them, but it's got some, inciting sort of a fear. Hey, you might get hurt here. These people are dangerous. I just want you to get home. We're going to clear a path. All right. So keep an ear out for this.
Everyone really I don't know. Just don't look for like 5 minutes, I guess. How do you do this?
Ignore.
So that people can
don't worry about what Katie's saying.
You don't want to just go.
You're not going to see anything. Don't worry.
Take a 5-minute break.
Close your eyes first.
Close your eyes,
Don't close your eyes.
Bro, I see people out there get hurt. I don't want to see you get hurt. We will make a path to that.
He says, I've seen people out there get hurt. I don't want to see you get hurt. All right. So he's talking to the cops. He's saying, listen to the cops, like, I don't want to see you get hurt. I've seen people get hurt. We'll clear a path for you.
You make a path.
Yeah. I just realized this is going to get us. I don't think we can show the actual.
Ignore what Katie's saying here.
I'll tell you when to stop it.
Yeah, we can't show her actually getting shot.
You're not going to see that. Don't worry, y'all.
Get this video in trouble. What's the what part?
Okay, I'll tell you when to stop.
Okay.
All right. So that's another Trump supporter screaming at the cops saying, when the whole country hated you, we had your back. All right. So this is how they're talking to the cops. Like, listen, we're on your side. All right. We're on your side. All right. You're a part of this. We're on your side. All right. We don't want to hurt you. That sort of rhetoric is going on. And again, remember, keep in mind, on the other side of this door is the U.S. Capitol Police. They have barricaded this door. There is a person of interest behind these doors. Potentially the vice president of the United States is standing on the other side of these doors. Okay. So it's either Mike Pence or possibly Mitch McConnell is on the other side of these doors. Okay. And these are the Capitol Police sworn to protect those individuals. All right.
Okay. So he's telling him, wait a minute.
So,
okay,
so do you see what just happened?
Go.
Did you see that just now? He's actually just talked the police down and just got the police now to move here. Okay. So now you can see that the mob has advanced all the way up to the door here. So in case folks didn't see that, I'll play it back one more time. You can see
what he's been doing to the cops the whole time to get them to move. And so the mob can advance.
Yeah. Everyone really I don't know. Just don't look for like 5 minutes, I guess. How do you do this so that people cannot?
I mean, if you don't want to just go.
Yeah.
Bro,
see the cops are still here.
I don't want to see you get hurt.
See,
we will make a path to that.
So here, these cops are the ones that are standing there.
I just realized this is going to get us. I don't think we can show the actual.
I'll tell you when to stop it.
Yeah, we can't show her actually getting shot because
telling them, listen, we're gonna clear a path. We're gonna make way for you.
What part?
Okay, I'll tell you when to stop.
Okay.
Okay, see the police leaving now? So the police have just walked away, all right? He's gotten the police to leave.
Wait a minute.
So that the mob can advance here.
Go. Okay, play it.
Let's get this
and
shit.
He's calling for the crowd, do that shit.
And he says, do that shit to them.
Let's do this shit, yeah.
He's egging them on to do this.
So this is where the woman's about to be shot here.
Break it. We're trying to break through. Someone important is on the other side, obviously.
Yeah.
Keep playing it.
There, the screaming is.
Now you can stop.
Yeah.
And then
so the screaming that you hear there is, somebody screaming after the woman is shot. The cops were on the other side. They just saw the cops that were standing between them in the door, between the door and the mob. Those cops just walk off, So imagine you're on the other side of this door. You're a cop. You just saw your only, partners there. Your squad, your fellow protection just walk away from you. So now it's just you, the door, in this, in a violent mob that is talking about, these are pedophiles. These are traitors to the country, seemingly wanting to, commit violence against these people and breaking through. And it's a very heated scene. All right. So this is, yeah, and he used this tactic at multiple stages to allow the mob to advance and to get the police to sort of stand down. So, all right, so before we go to the next clip, any initial thoughts on this, Kwame, before we jump over to the next clip? Anything you want to say about this? I know that for me, when I first saw the clip of the woman being shot and saw all that news that had come out, in the immediate aftermath, I said, you know what, this is like, it's a cop shooting an unarmed civilian. they now, and I still believe, yes, they should have tried. I wish they had tried to de-escalate it a little bit more, in the sense of like don't shoot to kill immediately. If I would hope that you could try to avoid that, shoot to wound, fire a warning shot that doesn't shoot at a human being, right, would be ideally, right? So that would be ideal. They didn't do any of that. They simply fired immediately, killed the woman. So would have wished they would have avoided it. However, given the scenario that they're facing and knowing what they're tasked to do, I think that it would be damn near insane to think that, because what they're trying to do is protect a further loss of life, right? Like, they're thinking, okay, maybe these people break through and then they kill all of us, that, it's just a handful of people in there. They could kill all of them in there. They could kill the people that they are sworn to protect, who are potentially the vice president of the United States. I'm sorry, me as an activist, I would never think that I could do that and not be risking a violent outcome for myself and my fellow activists and protesters. So that is you are leading people into a dangerous situation there, and that I honestly I'm on the fence about it at this point. I don't know, I don't know that I think that it's just outright, like, I'm not on the side of like, this is just outright unacceptable. No, I'm actually on the fence, and I really can understand why, in a situation like that, why someone might fire a shot, end up killing somebody or whatever. And honestly, according to Max Blumenthal, he talks about it after that. He says that stopped the mob dead in their tracks. No terrible pun intended, but it stopped the mob in their tracks. And so maybe, it may have prevented further loss of life, to be honest. So, any thoughts? Any initial thoughts before we'll move to a few other clips that get into a little bit different. I'll play a clip of Jaden X. Actually, maybe I'll play that out next, possibly, of Jaden X essentially showing that he was along. He was there celebrating with these people throughout multiple parts of this. But again,
I find it wild to them. I think that Tammy had said it, them casually walking away. Like, do they have, is there any accountability for the cops who walked away? Because if they hadn't had walked away and they hadn't had rushed and broke the window, would we have got to the point where that woman would have been shot had they had been not so easily swayed to walk away? And I'm not taking accountability off this dude. He's a complete asshole for trying to instigate this. Like, he is absolutely rotten. But just as an aside, since you didn't really touch on that point,
yep.
Like, what? Because, and this is something that I've seen. People just brought up about them, walking away, not being willing to put their life on the line. We saw this happen. Was it Parkland or the shooting right after that, where the guard left and didn't protect them, and there was nothing done afterwards? They were like, well, actually, it wasn't really your job,
Yeah.
So I'm like, why? What are you actually there for? Like, you're not really willing to protect, and I feel like a lot of this goes to why we have people who get shot unarmed all the time, because these people are scared and they want to make it home to their family. But that's not supposed to be your priority. Like, God, like, I know it's a shitty thing to do, but you got to be willing to lay it on the line. You really have to be willing to die to be in that line of work. And if you're not, you shouldn't do it. So if you get a little jumpy and you get scared and you're just going to set off your gun so you can go home to your family, it's not the right line of work for you. And I'm not saying that across the board, but that right there, that spot right there where they just take off and walk away. Like, I'm not faulting the dude who shot the shot for making a bad call, but the three cops who were like, yeah, maybe we should go take a lunch break real quick.
Yeah.
And then, we even have a comment here showing, LT says, unfortunately, the Supreme Court has ruled that the police aren't responsible to protect these citizens. And I mean, it's if it had been a monument to a slave owner, I bet you they would have been more willing to, not walk
Stand
away,
their
stand
ground.
their fucking ground.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and yes, so I totally agree on that. And that, that was my initial reaction to seeing that as well, was like, those cops essentially set up the scenario where I can now understand a little bit more the fear going through the other cops on the other side of the door when they just saw when these dudes
They
just
should
walk
have
away.
I hope they whoop their ass when they see them next time. Like, yo, bro, you were supposed to have, that was like the blocker just walking away and letting the quarterback get fucking
and
overran.
These people didn't like assault or beat the cops. They literally just talked them down and just got them to walk away. So
this was an RPG, and they rolled the meanest charisma check ever. They were just like, speech check. Yeah, all right, we're out then.
Yeah, exactly. And so they walk away, and that is, they put their whatever you call them, partners, whatever the hell, in their colleagues in danger further by walking away when they were there, and they had seemingly things were sort of steady. And even though it was like a scary situation, it's like, this is what you've trained for. This is the moment that you trained for. This should be everything you trained for. And especially as Capitol Police, right? Like, Capitol Police have to be trained to stop an insurrection at the Capitol, right? So this is literally like, you should have been ready for this for sure. And I'm not in any way trying to, not hold them accountable, not trying to give them a pass or anything like that. I'm certainly not trying to give the cops a pass or anything like that. However, I think my initial reaction of like, this was just totally unacceptable. This was just, yet another example of just like completely unnecessary, completely uncalled for police violence, against unarmed civilians. The situation is just a little bit different than how it had been portrayed in the news prior, with the other videos that we saw that were really harrowing videos that made it seem as though out of nowhere, this cop just like shot this woman in the neck after things were just kind of steady and calm for a second, when really that's not what the situation was. It was a very, dramatic, high pressure, high intensity situation. And then, I think that, and I think I'm not sure, but I think the cops are saying like, stand down, back away. They are trying to issue verbal warnings at least, which is part of the, like, they have like rules of engagement sort of, and they did follow at least those basic rules of engagement of being like, stand down, step back, freeze, stop or I'll shoot kind of thing. And the people continue to, to still disobey that order. And I think that it was that, you are moving towards cops. A lot of the BLM stuff that we get outraged about is people with their backs to cops, running from cops.
Like, these people got it so easy. They got it way easier than 13-year-olds with toy guns. I'll tell you that goddamn much. They at least got a warning. They didn't roll up and just start clapping dudes. So
exactly, absolutely. So I wanted to draw that distinction, but and point that out. But really, again, I don't want to get too far off track here. I want to focus on Jaden X and his role in these events and why, in combating that narrative. So what I want to play next is going to be next up. I think we should do there's a clip of you can see Jaden X throughout the events of the day, sort of like at multiple points celebrating with these people in a way that I think really highlights that they are not what they would seem as alleged Black Lives Matter activists. You would think that this person would not be trying to provide any sort of support or seeing themselves as being in solidarity with this movement in any way. So let's take a look at this. This next clip is from the same interview on the Katie Halper show with Max Blumenthal, and we'll take a look at the clip and then we'll come back and we'll discuss.
There's so many people. Let's go. This shit's ours. Fuck yeah. I can't believe this is reality. We accomplished this shit.
Might be the next one after this.
Okay.
You can hear him identify.
You know what I'm saying? He's like, we accomplished this shit. We did this together. We accomplished this shit. We did it together. All right. He's talking to a bunch of, far right fascists, insurrectionists, but these are far right Proud Boys fascists. And that he's saying, we did it. We did it. We found, okay.
Tying with the mob openly.
This is fucking history.
This is history.
Yeah, we did this together.
Second wave. Holy shit, there's so many people. Oh,
Now he's going to the wall where they're.
He's like genuinely happy here too.
You know, these are ex-military
screaming,
guys.
celebrating.
Who else does that? And he's a military son. But let's
And then
the
here's
next
the
one where he can be seen helping people over the wall.
let's go. You guys are savage. Let's go.
So here he is helping people over this wall that you saw,
Let's
sort of
fucking go.
iconic wall that people were scaling.
That was they're badass.
that's the
They're
filmmaker.
badass.
There's Jade
Yeah.
Sacker.
They do have to come with us. Come on. Come on. You have to come with us now.
And now he's helping.
There he is.
Give me your hand, bro.
You got it? Yeah.
You got it. You know, give me your hand, bro. You got it. He's helping people up over the wall here.
Holy shit. Dude, that was awesome. Good job. Shit.
Shut up.
Good job.
Let's burn this shit down.
Let's burn this shit
Yeah,
down.
let's burn
Burn this shit down.
Yeah. And then he
All
Yeah,
right.
here, play that. Go
Okay.
up.
We're gonna play another clip of here of
This
him
is apparently where he
breaking a
breaks
window.
yeah.
They tried to trap
We
us
don't
in
know.
there.
I mean,
It's
you'll
pretty,
see.
and you can see a little break in the pain.
Yeah,
And
it's nothing too
It
hard.
appears as
folded
though he
by
breaks a
Jade
window.
People on the
Sacker.
other side of the building.
I mean, it's obviously not the only destruction anyone did. We're not blaming him entirely for the. Look at those guys. It's like straight up the wall.
Damn. This is just a real scene. Holy shit. What reality is this? Oh my god, we did this shit.
We did this
We
shit.
took this shit.
We took this
What's
shit.
up, bro?
There.
Fucking yeah.
No,
fuck
not yet.
yeah.
You'll
We
hear,
did this
you'll hear
shit.
like a doo doo doo.
Groiper.
Oh yeah. What is that?
I'll explain that.
Okay, here it's about.
There.
Fucking yeah.
Here it comes.
Yeah.
Right here.
There you go. That
Right
banging.
here. Boom, boom, boom.
And then you'll see the glass is
Don't do it.
cracked. Yep. And then you see the glass
He
cracked.
goes,
Yep.
my bad,
I
but
didn't
they
know I
already
hit it
broke
that
the
hard.
windows. I didn't know I hit it that
No one
hard.
got that on camera.
No one got
No.
that on
Yeah. You did, motherfucker. Jesus.
I mean, that's why I feel like he's just not even.
No, and he didn't see anything wrong with putting this out there. So
Yeah. Which like contradicts his own what he says.
All right.
Okay, and then we have
So you're just seeing him sort of celebrating,
This
going
isn't
through
interesting.
with the rioters.
This
Here's the last part of this I want to show.
this life.
He's
Hell
talking
yeah,
to
dude, this is
a
surreal.
friend
Like
of
up
his,
top, like,
Jade
that's just like-
Sacker,
Oh my god.
a documentarian.
He's very good camera
Damn.
material.
I never
So,
would have imagined that we would be here.
I never would have imagined that we'd be here.
It's spicy a little bit.
We did it.
So
that's Jade Sacker.
We did it.
so she goes, I'll give you your hug now. We did it. You were right. We did it.
Dude, I was trying to tell you. I couldn't say much.
You were right.
You just have to watch my chat.
you just have to watch
It's
my
just
chat.
gonna be the best film you've ever made in your life.
Okay, watch this part. Cigar.
Gonna be the best film you've ever made in your life. Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah.
Wait, you weren't recording, right?
She's like, you aren't recording, right? He's like, I'll delete this shit.
He just voiced it.
And says that he didn't record
She
it, but
goes,
he
you
did.
didn't
All right. So that's a friend of his, Jade Sacker there. You can see him throughout, at multiple points in this, celebrating with the rioters, the looters, the insurrectionists, the far right, mob, all throughout. And then at the very end, we see him, talking to his friend, Jade Sacker. And she's a documentarian that was also there that day. And I'm going to pull up a quote from Jade in the article in the Gray Zone, because I thought that it was a revealing quote. And so I just want to show you this real quick. And this is, again, just a quote from his friend that was there, Jade Sacker. And it says, it says, while describing herself as Sullivan's friend, Sacker conceded that his ultimate agenda is to spawn as much destruction as possible. quote, he's just angry, she reflected to me. This is her talking. Max Blumenthal interviewed her after the fact, and this is her talking on the record to Max Blumenthal. So she says, quote, he's just angry, she reflected to me. And he says it in a lot of his videos, quote, fuck the system, burn it down. He doesn't think it can be reformed. Like, he kind of wants his civil war. He's a bit of a provocateur, and he wants to dismantle the system, and he believes in the value of civil disobedience. And because he is apolitical, I think he feels more of a sense of allegiance to anyone who shares that value of, I guess, chaos. Okay. So she's saying, listen, he's apolitical. He doesn't have any, he doesn't really have any true ideology. He's apolitical. And what he really feels a sense of allegiance to is anyone who shares the values of, I guess, chaos. All right. So that's a really, I think important point to note there, because what is being framed as a left-wing activist here is seemingly much more of a political activist. And I think, before we get, I gotta play a few more clips. I gotta play at least one more clip here, Kwame. So we'll get you in a sec. But let me play one more clip here. And this is going to be, because I just want to get all the clips out of the way for us so that we can just talk about it after the fact. So let's get this one last clip out here. And this last clip is going to be a little bit of the backstory of sort of his family background, a bit about his family background. And they're going to take it all the way from a discussion about his family background all the way up until, talking, they're going to bring in this important point about how the Black Lives Matter movement has responded to him, all around the country. All right. Because he's actually a known entity within the Black Lives Matter movement that he is known about. And they have had plenty to say about him in the past. And so I think that that's important to see that this is not a sort of Monday morning quarterbacking, people distancing themselves from him after the fact. The Black Lives Matter movement has been distancing themselves from him for as long as he's been, a part of the, showing himself within the movement. So here we're going to hear a little bit about his sort of family background and backstory, and then they're going to talk a little bit about the Black Lives Matter movement, and then I'll show you a little bit of info from them, and then we can come back and we can start to dig into some discussion. I might have to play one other clip for y'all. All right, we'll try to do this fast. Sorry about all these clips, y'all. All right, so let's pull up our next clip here. And if you have any quick thoughts, Kwame, feel free to share them while I pull up this clip. All right. So, all right, here we go. Take a listen to a little bit about his family background. And again, then they're going to talk about some of his actions within the Black Lives Matter movement that have sort of stood out. And and I think they tell an important part of the story of who he is.
So the brother, I spoke to him. I interviewed him for a half hour. He told me their father is a major general and retired major.
So Max Blumenthal is talking about John Sullivan, aka Jaden X's brother, James Sullivan. Okay, so he's talking about he interviewed the brother of John Sullivan, aka Jaden X, and this is what he had to say.
General in the Air Force. His name is Kevin J. Sullivan, and he's
white
Mormon.
He
adopted these Black children, and they were raised in a very conservative home mostly in Utah. And according to John Sullivan, they were raised colorblind. They were not even really told, you are Black, you have this heritage that you have to get in touch with. And so James Sullivan takes on the family's politics and takes it to another level and becomes like a kind of pro-Trump radical. His brother, during the George Floyd protests, turns against the family, calls them white supremacists and monsters, and then gets out in the streets and suddenly is at the forefront of this activist movement, despite having no political education and no credibility. And I mentioned, so the brother told me how Black Lives Matter Utah called him up, the right-wing brother, and said, please help us get rid of this guy. He's doing so much damage to us. And they worked together to get his pages from Facebook to basically isolate him. And
so real quick, I just want to jump in on this clip here. I'm going to play a little bit more of it. But what you just heard is that the brother, the right-wing brother, conservative, right-wing, pro-Trump brother who identifies closely and is aligned closely with the Proud Boys has joined forces with Black Lives Matter in Utah to get this, his brother Jaden X, banned and kicked off of, these different social media platforms, because Black Lives Matter, saw an opportunity to, they had a common enemy, right? Black Lives Matter and them. They didn't like that he was pushing far left sort of, rhetoric, and the BLM didn't appreciate that he was attaching to, far left, the left movement and the Black Lives Matter movement, that he was attaching this, in essentially inciting violence and endangering the movement and endangering people within the movement. All right. So you got, Black Lives Matter in Utah teaming up with the far right brother to get him removed and his site taken down off of Facebook, his Facebook page and things like that, because they see him as a common enemy, because he's, hurting the right, and he's, but also very importantly, hurting Black Lives Matter. Okay. So we'll just play a couple more minutes of this clip, and here's where they're going to talk about really, what some of the things that he did within the Black Lives Matter movement, that concerned the other Black Lives Matter activists,
and get him kicked out of activist circles in Utah. He then gravitates to Portland, which is like, the epicenter of Antifa protests against police brutality. And activists there begin to wonder about him. This is all documented in a Twitter thread that I just tweeted out. It's embedded in my article.
I'm going to show
by
you
Seattle Black Lives Matter chapter, or a Seattle anti-fascist activist chapter. And they said, at one point he shows up with a megaphone. That's kind of his MO.
Yeah.
Takes groups down with him, gets them under his sway. And then he has this tendency to take them to areas where they couldn't go, and often weaken the protest march. So he took, according to Portland activists, he led a number of activists down an alley and insisted they go a certain way, even though he's not from the city and has no idea what the street patterns are. And he leads them straight into a police kettle. And they said that every time he showed up, arrests kept happening. He was alleged.
Police kettles, for anyone not familiar, police kettle it's a tactic that the police use in protest situations. Typically, it's supposed to be a riot tactic where you encircle an area, you force people into a very tight area, and you encircle them, and you essentially trap them in an area. And this was actually cited by a third-party group in New York that investigated the New York Police Department, their response to the George Floyd protest, and said that this kettling technique is actually a really dangerous tactic employed by police, because it ends up creating confusion and creating a scenario where often it leads to more, it leads to violence, and it also is a sort of entrapment of the protesters, and can also, it blocks them from getting out and getting away from, potential violence. So you're trapping them in a really tight area, and then, in the case of New York, then gas, pepper spraying, tear gassing, rubber bulleting these people, which creates a bunch of chaos and actually escalates violence. So, he's leading activists into dangerous situations with police, is what they're saying here.
Said to have leaked private details of directions through these dizzying array of burner accounts that he would set up on Twitter and Facebook. And he still has an array of burner accounts. And he was very legitimately accused of grifting. If you go to his Insurgents USA site, the most extensive section is dedicated to merch. And it's expensive riot gear, including a switchblade. But expensive riot gear, gas masks, tactical gloves, that kind of thing. And so then from Portland, he starts drifting into the Washington, D.C. BLM scene. Shows up in August during the march to commemorate Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech and his March on Washington. And this was like Al Sharpton's march. So it was kind of like it drew a lot of people, but it didn't have that militant spirit. It was like all the speeches were about like vote for the Democrats, very culted rhetoric. It was, and he shows up on BLM Plaza completely alone and does this bad impersonation of Huey Newton, and then calls for snatching Trump out of the White House, and basically uses violent rhetoric about like going up in the White House and snatching Trump out of it. And that footage.
Can we show that? I have it.
All right. So I'm going to show that footage. And just a moment. Give me one sec here while I pull that up, and we'll take a look at this is the speech. This is the sort of doing his Huey Newton or a Fred Hampton impression here. And so let's take a listen to, this is John Sullivan, aka Jaden X here, at that DC protest on in Black Lives Matter Plaza in DC. Okay. And this is the speech that they were referring to there.
What's going on, everybody? My name's John Sullivan. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. My group is Insurgents USA. We fucking about to burn this shit down. Fuck this shit. Anybody out here seeing that white militia guy shoot three kids? Yeah. Fuck that guy. And I will tell you this shit is in Utah, a whole bunch of white militia came out there, formed against our group. We out there strapped. We out there ready to burn that shit down. We out there to defend our fucking self. We got to defend ourselves now too. We do. Because power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Here's his fake.
Power to the people. Power to the people. Damn right. We got fucking rip Trump out of that office right over there. Fucking pull him out that shit. Nah, we ain't about fucking waiting until the next election. We about to go get that motherfucker. I ain't about that shit. Because you know what time it is? I want y'all to be after me. It's time for a revolution. It's time for a revolution. It's time for a revolution. Thank you guys. I appreciate y'all. Be safe. Be blessed.
Be safe. Be blessed. After you just, people into the
Fuck believed this man.
Yeah.
I've never met a more low energy, uncharismatic, faking it motherfucker in my life. You just don't have it, bruh. You do not have the spark. You can't. He comes off like someone who just landed a role in a on Broadway version of, or is trying to land a role on a on Broadway version of the Fred Hampton story, and he does not have it, man. And it was clear dude didn't know what he was talking about. He's like the white dude who shot the 3 people. It's like you weren't even aware any of this was going on a week ago, bro.
Yeah. And he says in there some pretty wild shit to say, we're gonna go rip the president out of the White House. Fuck that. We're not gonna wait till the election. Like, sorry, but that's anti-democratic. That's not how democracies work. All right. And we're not gonna go overthrow democracy, in some again, that's not what our revolution is about. It's a people's revolution. I don't want some faux revolution, under the pretenses of a violent insurrection. Like, I don't want a violent insurrection. I saw the Black Socialists of America tweet something out to that effect. Like, I want my revolution to be a people's revolution, not to be a violent insurrection. And so, because what happens when you do that, when you have these violent insurrections, whoever the most violent person is rises up as a, de facto leader in that movement. And violence, begets violence, and you end up with, an authoritarian figure in there who has come to power by, most violent person wins. I don't want that system to be the one how we pick our leadership is by most violent person wins. It should be by a vote, a democratic vote of the people. And so, yes, I just want to play this clip because they talked about him doing like a bad Huey Newton impression. I think that, we mentioned Fred Hampton. I think that there's a perfect, segue to bring in this clip of Fred Hampton. And this is Fred Hampton being interviewed by ABC News on October 9th, 1969. And in this interview, you know, he gets asked about the SDS and I'm spacing on the name. He'll mention them. I think they're like they'll mention them, their names. I apologize. The Watermen or something like that. But they're talking about these tactics that they used and how they actually endangered people and how the Black Panthers felt about those sort of tactics that endanger activists in the movement. And so here's Fred Hampton answering a question about, you know, do you agree with the tactics of these sort of, tactics that lead people into harm's way? All right.
Fred, where does the Black Panther Party stand concerning the Weathermen, the SDS?
Weathermen.
We stand way back from the SDS and the Weathermen because we believe that the Weathermen action is two actions. It's RIM 2 and Weathermen. We think they call them both national action. We think that RIM 2 is national action, Weathermen is national reaction, you know. We think it is anarchistic, opportunistic, individualistic, it's chauvinistic, it's customistic, and that's the bad part about it. It's customistic in that its leaders take people into situations where the people can be massacred, and they call that revolution. And it's nothing but child's play, it's folly, and it's criminal because people can be hurt. We say that they're doing exactly what the pigs want them to do. When they take people down and just do nothing, play around, and the pigs are prepared for this, and they'll wipe all of those young people out. We think these people may be sincere, but they're misguided, they're muddleheads, and they're scatterbrains. The only way we can show them is to criticize them like we're doing right now, and then leave from here and go to the federal building and have a demonstration that's to educate, a demonstration that is disciplined and organized, you know. And that's what we're gonna have to do, and let them see the examples.
All right, so that's Fred Hampton saying, listen, you know, when you can't lead people into harm's way, you know, that's not revolutionary. It's not revolutionary if you're just leading the people to slaughter, right? You can't lead people like lambs to slaughter. So that is not revolutionary. It's just dangerous and just dumb. And what you call muddle-headed, you know, is the best word that he could come up with to be like, listen, I think that, you know, maybe they're sincere, maybe they have good intentions, but it's a dumb, bad strategy that we do not align ourselves with. And all that we can do is to you know, distance ourselves from that and to say that is not what we believe in, that is not what we support, and then to go and set the example of what we do support. All right, and that is to have, you know, non-violent, actions that don't lead people to, you know, to get hurt, don't lead our followers to get hurt. So I think if you're a real Fred Hampton, that's the kind of, you know, and you're a real revolutionary, that's the mindset that you have to have, not what Jaden X was doing here, which was just endangering people and really putting people, you know, into harm's way. So I can share with you the thread from Black Lives Matter that shows that they were distancing themselves, not just, you know, last week, but they were distancing themselves back in November. As you know, as I found things going all the way back to November that they cited in the gray zone that show that Black Lives Matter was saying, listen, they were putting out warnings, national warnings about John Sullivan, aka Jaden X, saying, listen, do not let this person come and participate in your movements. We are calling for a national ban, of this person, John Sullivan, from any Black Lives Matter action. So the Black Lives Matter movement has distanced themselves from this person a long time ago. They are not a Black Lives Matter activist and should not be identified as such. And, you know, CNN and MSNBC identifying him as a civil rights activist or left-wing activist or liberal activist, they really fed into the right wing's narrative of saying like, hey, you got, you know, because what's happened, the right wing has latched on to this and said, look, it was Black Lives Matter and Antifa instigating, you know, the situation. And I just don't think it's not true. You know, this is an apolitical person who does not care. All he cares about is causing chaos and destruction. And he does not align truly with the left. And honestly, it doesn't seem like he has much alignment with anyone. He just wants to fuck shit up and burn shit down with no, you know, direction or vision in mind. It's just about destroying and destruction. And we cannot align ourselves with those sorts of people. And we have to always constantly be on the lookout for them and to exercise them from our movements and make sure that we distance and denounce their sort of actions. So Kwame, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly obvious that the dude's just a grifter and opportunist. You know, it's if you are at a Black Lives Matter protest and it's starting to get a little rowdy. All of a sudden, the Joker shows up and starts blowing things up. No one would then assume that the Joker identifies with or is a part of Black Lives Matter. Just an agent of chaos who happened to be there. Like, come on, let's use some common sense here, guys. Like, again, it's very obvious. Like, even from the way he was giving his speech, like, there was no clear goal. He never said any policy change that he was aiming for, anything he was trying to actually accomplish to help people. Like, it like nothing. Like, because he's not about this. He's not about that. If you asked him what was important to him, I guarantee you his biggest concern would be burning it all down and taking care of Trump. There's no Medicare for all, no minimum wage, no none of that. I'm willing to bet he does not concern himself with it. And he doesn't, because he's apolitical. He's apolitical.
Yep. On what you said about him being a grifter, there's this great quote in that Gray Zone article. And it's actually, there's two quotes. One is by a DC-based Black Lives Matter activist who said, if there's violence to instigate, he will raise it to another level, but he's not the one that does it. This is Sean Michael Love, a DC-based Black Lives Matter activist and publisher of Black House News, said of John Sullivan. And that's a dangerous type of person. That's one of the most dangerous types of people to me. So he's saying he likes to instigate violence, but he's not the one that ends up, he doesn't do it. He just instigates other people to do it, which is really dangerous, because like he's not the one that's at risk of being harmed in this. It's really him setting other people up to be in harm's way, right? And it goes on to say a quote from his brother, James Sullivan, at the end of this. And he says, quoting from his brother, he says, what he does is he creates hysteria and he takes these phony videotapes of it. So that's why he got kicked out of the movement in Utah, James Sullivan said. They kicked him out because he would instigate violence to the point that people would get arrested. But then he would get views on Facebook or YouTube. He's doing it for attention. Okay. So his own brother is saying, listen, like, he's talking about Black Lives Matter. He's like, look, Black Lives Matter kicked him out because he would instigate violence to the point that people got arrested. So even this far right dude is like, yeah, no, my brother was like an instigator and he instigated violence and he got kicked out by Black Lives Matter. So here's a right winger saying no and saying, yeah, no, he knows that Black Lives Matter has distanced themselves from his brother and is not, they do not see him as a helpful, co-conspirator or anything like that. This is somebody that has been pushed away from the movement at every turn. So I just thought that this was really, really important to just get out there and to show and to try to create some counter narrative to what's going on out there, because you're hearing a lot in the news of like, oh, this apparently there's like 70% or so of Republicans polled believe that Antifa or 70% of conservatives polled, I guess, believe that Antifa or Black Lives Matter were the ones that actually, started and caused the riots at the Capitol. And so we got to combat that sort of false narrative. This is not a Black Lives Matter activist. That's not who he was, even if the mainstream media has tried to portray him that way. And I believe PolitiFact even tried to write a fact check where they downplayed his involvement in the Capitol insurrection, and I don't know if they've yet retracted that, but they should absolutely retract the article because it's just false, and we shouldn't. It makes us look worse. It makes it look like we're trying to run cover for a supposed left activist when really we just need to show highlight that
the proof's there. Just show the proof. It's wild. Like, just call a spade, like, and do the bare minimum amount of work in if you have real journalistic integrity. How do you say that this dude is a Black Lives Matter civil rights activist when he has no history? He's shown up to protests and tried to start riots. That is his entire political history. Yep. That's his whole political history. Dude, he's not out there at any meetings. He's not at any actions. He's like no sit-ins. He's just there to start shit. So for you to even classify him as a civil rights activist, it tells me that you either didn't do your due diligence of researching it, or you think that, or that's what you think civil rights activists are, and you are in no way, shape, fashion, or form equipped to speak on any of this.
Yep, absolutely. Great points. I know Kwame has to take off soon, so I don't want to hold him up too much longer. I just had this, Twitter thread pulled up that I just wanted to, just show people exists out here, at Rebellion Baby, tweeted on November 26, 2020, months ago, saying, we have reason to, hashtag Seattle protest community alert. We have reason to believe that a likely infiltrator / agent provocateur by the name of John Sullivan, or quote, activist John, is attempting to insert himself in the Seattle protest community. They go on to say, they show a picture of him just to really, hammer the point home. They say how he's been kicked out of the Salt Lake and Portland protest scenes due to alarming behaviors, including grifting, profiteering, self-promotion, clout chasing, sabotage of community actions, threats of violence, and maybe most disturbingly, ties to the far right. They talk about his brother's connection to, pro-Trump and strong ties to the Proud Boys. And then they say, activists in these cities recommend that he be barred from community actions and totally avoided. Social media accounts claiming to be Seattle-based, yet aligning with John's MO, have been popping up and interacting with existing local protest groups in the past few days. Those are seemingly accounts that were started by John Sullivan himself, trying to feign as though he was getting support within these communities. And then they say, in addition to recently attempting to cozy up to our local orgs, he's doing a lot of talking on his socials about trying to, about wanting to move from away from Utah. And he says, they say, stop trying to be friends with us, John. So they even go on to cite, some more things posts by other people from as far back as June 23rd, I believe, or is that, no, sorry, that's saying the number of tweets here. Sorry. This is from, again, okay, November 23rd. So this was just a few days earlier before that. And again, just people, naive organizer or agent provocateur, people warning about him, continually warning about him. So just know that this was known, and this was a person that Black Lives Matter had called out and did not, was not a true part of the Black Lives Matter movement. He was condemned by Black Lives Matter, and they have done everything to distance themselves from him. And just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that, saw what was going on, and had some information, and just got the right information to combat that narrative. Sorry that this video took so long. This is way longer than I wanted this video to run. If you haven't done so already, please hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, share this video out, help us spread this word. And, this is very important that we spread the word on this and get another, get a counter narrative out. Feel free to share the Katie Halper video. That one, I mean, they did it more concisely than us, so definitely check that out. And, check out Kwame, Raised Fist Media, at Raised Fist Media on YouTube and Twitter. If you can afford to do so, please support our show, support our channel. It's independent, Black Left Media. We are trying to build democracy in the workplace here. So if you believe in democracy in the workplace, please support us on Coffee at ko-fi.com/radical democracy. You can also find us on Patreon, patreon.com/radical democracy. Links are in the description box down below. So all you got to do is open up the description box. You can find links to the sources, everything that we mentioned here today. And you can find links to our Patreon, our Coffee and our Patreon in there. Please, you can support us for as low as $1. We deeply appreciate the support. Shout out to all of our existing, members, Coffee supporters, Patreon. Love you all. Appreciate you all. Thank you so much to everyone for all that you do. For helping to keep the show alive. Any last thoughts before you go, Kwame? No worries if you don't have any. We can cut this here.
I think you summed it up perfectly. It don't fall for the hype, man. This is this is one of the ones where it's so painfully obvious. Like, this dude is like a bargain bin king. He's James Sullivan King as far as the grift goes, except he's
John Sullivan King,
or John Sullivan King. I won't say the other dude that I'm implying his full name because I don't want him to sue us like he does all whenever he attacks black
It ain't Martin Luther King. I'll tell you that.
not
much.
Martin
It ain't
Luther King. Lord. But like I feel like it was like if he could have if he went more liberal, he would have eventually ended up over there. Instead, he went more radical and has now ended up palling around with the Proud Boys and inciting riots at the fucking Capitol. So
yeah,
don't
and one last thing I quickly want to point out is that while he instigated some parts of this for sure, this was not 100% instigated. Like he is one person amongst a whole lot of people, and I don't care even if somebody. Exactly. It's personal accountability. All right. Yes. If you follow along with somebody like this, sorry, but that is on you at that point. All right. That is on you. You have to have the instincts and the understanding of these things to not go along with this. And so, this is not an agent provocateur situation where he was just trying to get these people in trouble. No, this is somebody that just wanted to burn it down, and he latched on to the far right movement because he saw that being his best chance to actually cause the destruction and the damage that he wanted to cause. And so he wasn't able to successfully do it through the Black Lives Matter movement because he couldn't find sympathetic people to him, and he found that in these fascist insurrectionists. So just got to be real about that.
And if the Black Lives Matter movement was as bad, evil, dangerous, or as scary as the Trumpers tried to make them out to be, I'm sure that he would have palled up with them. So that should tell you all you need to know about that nonsense narrative too.
Such a great point. He wanted
violence and he couldn't find it with Black Lives Matter, and now he's palling around with the Proud Boys.
Absolutely. Great point. Appreciate that point. Actually, that's such a great point. All right, I think we can end it there on that. So thank you so much for joining us today, Kwame. Really appreciate you coming on. Like, subscribe, and share, everyone, and we will catch you again